Hi everyone, here's a short introduction on the samurai. So the samurai is part of a bigger system in pre-modern Japan. So at the time, Japan was ruled by something called the shogun, which was a military ruler. And underneath the shogun were something called the daimyos, which were wealthy landowners. And so the samurai were the military strength of those wealthy landowners. And in turn, they served the landowners, and in return, the samurai would be rewarded with land, with status, with power. And so this flowchart kind of helps us understand how the samurai fit into the bigger system that was happening at the time in Japan. I liked this piece of artwork because it shows a battle, but it also shows this really important crossing, the first person to cross the river and then the battle that happened afterwards. And so there are lots of pieces of old Japanese art that show different battles that happened between really well-known and elite samurai of the time. So the samurai armor was pretty cool. There was a bunch of things that made up the armor, but the samurai were really important people and really important characters at this time because they would later come to make up this ruling military class that would eventually become the highest ranking social caste in Japan. Remember, another word for social caste would be your class. So the samurai wasn't just a title, it wasn't just a job, it was your class as a person who lived in Japan. And so on the right, you can see this really ornate or kind of beautiful piece of armor, but many samurai wore a helmet to protect their head and neck, and it would kind of cover the top of their head and then go down over the back of their neck. They would wear a chest plate, they would wear arm and shoulder protectors, and a belly wrap. And later on, so samurai, action. The samurai would later make up the ruling military class that would become the highest ranking social caste in Japan. Remember, another word for social caste is your class. So the samurai wasn't just a job, it wasn't just something that men did, but it was their entire class. It was how they identified themselves socially in Japan. And many samurai would wear a helmet that protected their head and neck. It would cover the top of their head and then go down the back of their neck almost onto their shoulders. They would wear a chest plate. They would wear arm and shoulder protectors and a belly wrap. And samurai later on in history would actually come to wear like thigh and shin covers as well, especially those who would mount on horseback. Some really important vocab words that you're going to want to know. The first is Bushido. Bushido was the samurai code of total loyalty to the landowner, right? To that wealthy feudal landowner, to the point that they were willing to die for that man. Bushido, the definition is the way of the warrior, or the samurai code. And so these 7 things, integrity, respect, courage, honor, compassion, honesty, and duty or loyalty were what drove every single thing that the samurai did and how they carried themselves. Seppuku was this ritual form of suicide, and it sounds very dramatic and intense, and it often was, but it was this very thought out formal ceremony, a ritual really, when dishonor fell upon a samurai, if they were about to lose a battle, or if they disagreed with their lord or got into some kind of argument with the feudal landowner that they served, they would perform seppuku, which involved stomach cutting and then beheading. The 2 different weapon types that we associate with samurai, really they used a number of different things, but when we think samurai, most people often think sword, and there were 2 kinds of swords. The first was the katana. It was this long curved sword, almost 2 feet in length sometimes, and the other was the shoto, the short sword, which was only about 12 inches, so like the length of a ruler. And like I said in that other slide about the armor, the most elite warriors would come to use bow and arrows, and that was because they were often on horseback. So why was war so necessary in Japan at the time? Well, the head of Japanese kind of governing at